Welcome, Jane Faulkner.
Hey.
So Jane you have so many qualifications. It's such a list and I'm going to read it. So a registered nurse, a certified Iyengar yoga teacher, got your master's in Gestalt therapy. You're also a qualified art therapist and an equine therapist, which is what we're going to talk about today. I loved when I read on your website, Jane supports, challenges and guides you. She empowers you to live your best life and to walk in awareness and compassion. I think that's really lovely and says who you are and what you do. So, yeah, let's hear a bit more about what you are doing with the horsemanship, horsework.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I guess I started my career as a registered nurse, like you said, and working in the medical industry and in mental health in hospitals, I really became curious about what made people sick, and also realized I had no tools to help people. So I kind of got really frustrated, which led me on to the journey that I've been on through yoga and art therapy and the 4 years of Gestalt. And for me, I guess horses present aware beings. And I know for me, my first session, so I got into, it came totally out of left field for me to do equine therapy. And I did a session with a woman and it just got straight to my core stuff, which made me think, wow, I really want to learn this. And what I love about it and working with people with the horses is they're really gentle, they're very kind, but they're also very honest and they're very authentic. So for me, they've really taught me to relax, but also to stand strong in who I am. Because to be around a horse, they really ask you to step up and be equal to them. And in my past, I always made myself smaller than or less than, and kind of worked really hard to work out what everyone else needed and to meet those needs first. And that doesn't work with horses. They see straight through that. And I guess with horses, connection and relationship is really important. So for me to have a horse connect to me, I had to learn how to connect to myself and to live from the inside out. So to learn to breathe and to be curious about who I was. So to feel my feelings, to be curious about why I was feeling certain feelings, and to actually really be present to the feeling. So rather than spinning off with the story that the feeling brought up, to actually just sit with the feeling. And horses really are comfortable holding you in that space where you're really in touch with what's going on for you and your feeling. So I work with the horses now because they really help people come home to themselves. And some, depending on who shows up, so they respond to our body language. And if you think of horses in the wild and how they've evolved, is that they are really sensitive to whatever and whoever is in their environment. So they feel into us and they feel into where we're holding tension. They respond to thoughts. They feel into our heart rate, our breath rate. And for me, I really believe they feel into our story. Whether we hold that a certain way in our body that they respond to or not, I'm not sure. I say that just because I've seen so many people, and I haven't had a thorough, I didn't know their backgrounds, and just how the horse responded to them tapped straight into their background and their story. And then in bringing that up, we could then work with it. Wow. Working with horses. Oh, sorry. Should I let you get a word in? Working with the horses, they, I forgot, I've lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
You're talking about them reading into story, that you feel you've seen some stories and people, and you didn't know the story, and the horse seems to know that story.
Yeah, and with horses, they respond immediately. So they respond to the story, and what's awesome about working with them is that comes up and the person can look at that and start exploring that, and then try out something different. And then the horse responds to that. So that person gets new information about, wow, if I respond in this way, the horse wants to connect with me. So it gives all these opportunities for people to become aware of old patterns, beliefs and stories and how they impact making connection in relationship. And then they provide opportunities for to learn new skills to be able to connect and be in relationship. And what I love about working with the horses is it doesn't come from the head. It's not we don't do a lot of talking. It's a lot of feeling and breathing and being in the body. So it's really powerful with people that have a history of anxiety, because around a horse, if a horse feels that the person in front of them is anxious, they get anxious and quite nervous and will actually move away generally from that person. So then with that anxiety, the person can learn to breathe and to feel their feet and to feel the earth and to start to get curious again about what they're feeling and to start to express that feeling, which I think is the piece that we miss when we have anxiety. The feeling comes up, and rather than being with the feeling and getting curious about what it needs, we push on or push through or move to the addiction or whatever.
Can you say a little bit more about, I think if a horse was moving away from me because of my anxiety, it would increase my anxiety. How do you work with the person in that stage, in that case?
Broke up a little bit there, Nikki.
Oh, sorry.
If a horse is moving away.
Yeah, so how do you talk to the client that's working with the horse? How do you talk to them in that case? I imagine their anxiety might increase because the horse has moved away.
Yeah, I guess generally what happens is it helps that person really come home to their anxiety.
Okay.
Which can be confronting. Often it brings tears then. But then we'll have an open dialogue and we'll talk about the anxiety, and we'll talk about, we'll explore it. So, and then often in exploring the anxiety and feeling into it, actually a huge thing I do is we stop and we put our hands on the body where we feel the anxiety and we breathe into it. And we welcome the feeling. And we get curious about the feeling. So where it starts, how far it spreads, what comes with the feeling, if there's any thoughts or pictures or words, and even if the feeling could say something, what it would say. So we really stay with that. We really stay home in ourselves, which for many people is a very new thing. And what's amazing about working with the horses is often as soon as the person does that, the horse will turn in for connection, which really helps the person see how much their anxiety impacts them and their capacity to connect with others or to connect with themselves. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it becomes a really great tangible tool for people that have anxiety, where they can, maybe they're working with the horse and then the horse moves away and then they're like, oh, why has the horse moved away? And we might explore if they've started thinking, or if they've started holding their breath, or if they've started, all of their energy started to come up. And then we'll just breathe and bring the energy down into the pelvis and the legs. So they'll start, the horse kind of helps them catch it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's a feedback system.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Because sometimes when something's so familiar, we're unaware that we're even doing it for weeks, months, years. So the horses give that clear feedback straight away, which most people find really helpful. Yeah.
Fantastic. So what does a session look like when you're working with, can you give a bit more of an idea for someone that's never seen this, never heard of this?
Yeah, sure. So we always start the session. So I work with two separate herds. Herds is like a horse family. I work with one herd has 3 horses and the other herd has 4 horses. So before we start, we always do a breathing and a grounding exercise. So we just take 5 deep, slow breaths. And I call them messy breaths. So breaths where you're breathing and you're breathing to allow yourself space inside, almost like sighs. So we'll do 5 of them, and then we will feel the feet on the ground, feel the feet in the shoes, and feel the ground beneath us, and then bring the awareness up through the body and just get curious about how the body is and what's happening under the skin. And then from there, when that person is kind of more aware of what's happening inside, we'll just notice the horses. So the horse, we're normally out of the paddock, not yet in the paddock, so we can observe the horses. And then when the person feels comfortable, we go and approach each horse. And we see what happens. So we see how the horse responds and we see what comes up in the person, because it's often 2 ways. And often a lot of information comes up just meeting a horse. And I guess because it's very body language with horses. And I guess when you meet a new person in your life, there's anxiety and body stuff, but we're so used to covering up and quickly rushing in, and we've got all these ways of covering up our anxiety and pretending everything's cool. But with a horse, that doesn't wash. So as they approach the horse will respond. And then I guess just that honesty and that congruence that the horse brings often brings up something for the client that we then work on. Because horses really look for congruence, that what you're feeling matches what you're doing and saying, and they won't tolerate incongruence. They won't stand there. They'll move away, and some horses will actually even get cranky. And again, they're just saying, hey, just be yourself. Yeah, just be yourself, and then we can all relax. Because when what you're saying and what I'm feeling don't match, I don't feel safe, which I think applies to us too. We're just so used to pretending. That kind of, and then pretending, and then possibly thinking there's something wrong with us when we feel things and yet hear different things.
Wow, what a powerful mirror they are for us then.
Yeah, I guess for me, I more think they respond to us rather than mirror us. A lot of people say horses mirror us, but for me, they have such unique personalities, and they all respond differently to depending on who walks in the paddock. So one of the horses I work with is super sensitive, so he might walk away. There's another one that's quite dominant, so he might pin his ears and say, no, don't come into my space. And there's another one that's very cheeky, and he might start nibbling. They're all responding to anxiety or to incongruence, but in their way. Yeah, so they all respond differently rather than mirroring us. So they definitely teach us about ourselves. But they've taught me so much.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
I had one session once with a group of young people many years ago, and it was really interesting. And I've had a fear of horses in my life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm so curious about it. Probably time for me to go and have a session with horses.
I think it's particularly helpful when you are frightened of horses.
Yeah.
Because it often reflects, I feel, fear of power, either your own or that dynamic that often we set up where I'm bigger than, you're smaller than, or we both can't be powerful. You either have more power or I do. And what I love around horses is they're like, no, we can both be equal and we can both be powerful. And I don't feel comfortable with the other game, where you hand me all your power or you need to dominate me. They really ask us to be equal and to just be real. So I invite clients to really talk to the horse and tell them how you're feeling, which might be, man, you're big and I'm really scared and you intimidate me. Which again is giving them another tool for finding words for how they feel, which is a skill a lot of us don't have. Yeah.
Do you work with family groups and couples and or is it?
Yep. And that's fascinating as well, because the horse or the horses will often bring up what happens in the family group or the couple. Yeah, so I remember once there was a couple and they were leading a horse and the whole dynamic of their relationship came up in how they led the horse. And the husband said to the wife, I feel like, see how the horse is responding to you? That's how I feel the whole time. Because the horse was getting frustrated because she just wasn't listening to him at all. She was valuing getting this task done rather than the relationship. And then when she watched him, she was like, oh man, you know, you're not going anywhere, nothing's happening. So they could really kind of see what happened. And I guess like we believe in Gestalt, that what you'll do in the relationship with your therapist is how you do relationship beyond that. And I think that's what happens with horses too. Your contact style and the way you break contact shows up. And so it gives you an opportunity to work on it. And I think even though working with horses can be confronting because it is right in your face and you can't just go, oh, that's just that lady making it up. You know, if the horse turns his butt to you, that's kind of a really big signal. But so it is confronting, and yet it's also it seems a really lovely way to work with people around issues that they're sensitive over. You know, like maybe their contact style or parts of themselves that they're not aware of, or parts of themselves that they've disowned.
And it sounds like as with art therapy, it's bypassing some of the cognition and the words, and that the story is quite strong and unavoidable when the words aren't there. It's like, whoa, here it is.
Very much like that. Very much like that. And yet in that there's a real gentleness to it.
Yeah.
So horses really want to, like art therapy, but the horses really want to create that relationship. So they really want to support, and they're so non-judging, and you know, there's that real unconditional kind of love there. So, and I love about horses too is they just get over things. So they might tell you something and then just go back to normal. You know, they don't hold on to things, or so it gives people an opportunity to keep moving through things as well and not get stuck or not keep beating themselves up. Because if they do, they miss that opportunity to connect again, because they're in their head or back in an old pattern. And the horse is like, oh man, I'm here for you, but see you later. You're not present for yourself.
Wow. Love it. Sounds so simple and so powerful.
Yeah. I think that's what they've taught me, that the simpler things like the breath and feeling your feet and allowing yourself time and giving yourself permission to just say, I need you to step back, I'm feeling overwhelmed. It's so powerful. Yeah.
And that unavoidable self, facing what's happening in the body and listening.
Yeah, exactly. And accepting needs. Yeah, because the horses do.
Yeah.
They accept whoever you are and whatever you bring. And for so many people, that's very new.
Absolutely. They might never have experienced that in human relationships.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Oh, Jane, that's wonderful taste. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have you got any other little treasures you want to add that you feel has not been said before we finish up?
Probably just some beautiful stories.
Yeah.
So stories of just where the horses have really come in to support people. Like I had a client that was in his 20s and had Asperger's and social anxiety and really struggled forming relationships. And so for him, when he first came into the paddock and went up to the horses, they actually kind of weren't really interested, which for him, because he's a real animal lover, until he gave himself permission to breathe and relax and take the pressure off himself and to kind of verbalize what was happening. So to really share how he felt when the horse rejected him, which helped him tap into other deeper feelings around relationships. And just how amazing it was as soon as he did share that, and the two horses I have, Java and Phoenix, just kind of came in and really, like, one of them rested his head on the young man's chest and the other one came up behind him and they just really held him. And it was so beautiful and powerful. Then he just sobbed.
Lovely.
Yeah, just to be held in that way and to be understood and to be enough. Be there for him and hold him. So many stories like that where they just seem to know what we need, whether it's a little bit of challenge or a little bit of support or a little bit of both. Yeah, they're very wise beings. They've really taught me a lot and they constantly blow me away.
Oh, yeah. So lovely. I'll have to get a session next time I'm in Queensland.
Yeah, I would love that.
So that's where your practice is, and people can contact you through your website and your Facebook page. And I know you're very active on Facebook. You post fascinating stuff. And thank you so much for joining us, Jane. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right.
And to spread the word of what equine therapy is. It's still very new here.
Yeah. Fabulous. I'm curious, very curious.
Thanks, Nikki, and thank you for the amazing work you're doing.
My pleasure.